What's up guys, James here. Welcome to Anchor Designs on the 24-inch Beaver scroll saw, part 2. Pre-warning here guys, there's a lot of sped up video from recording this. We got about an hour and a half worth of footage, so I had to kind of cram it down into half, and plus it's really boring watching a fat bloke just grind down when using an angle grinder and watch it. So we're going to speed through all the little niggly bits and bobs here, but we're starting on the arm. Just going to be grinding down. I'm going to be quiet for this little bit because I don't know what's in here. Well, bugger me. No idea what that was. Okay, masking, again, a pet peeve of mine. It's, you know, you spend half an hour masking and 3 minutes of actually painting. But it's one of those. You can't do one without the other. And using this cheap masking tape, I'm just going to stop buying it. It's just crap. You spend more time using it and you just be tight with trying to not use the 3M stuff. But by the time you finish and messed about with it, then you know, you probably not save yourself any time or money by the time you look at it and the time it took. So next little bit that we're going to go into here is actually painting, and I know the best thing would be to do is you know, paint it with a spray gun, but I use these mohair rollers. They're not like a normal emulsion type household brush thing. These are the same ones that I've just done to paint my narrowboat with, and you get a really good finish. It goes on well. The primers, it's not too thin, it's not too thick, so you get very little runs, but it's really nice, and you can flat it really well. But yeah, that's where we're at. I'm just Scotch Brighting now, and it gives a nice finish. End of the day, these are cast parts. You know, they're not sheet metal automotive body panels or anything like that, so I'm not after a great desired finish. I want protection and I want durability. I'm using the Rust-Oleum hard wearing paint. It's meant to be direct to metal, but I primed it anyway. As I say, you know, I want this to last as well as possible. I want this scroll saw to work extra fast, so I painted it in British Racing Green, so it goes faster. Yeah, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. But no, I like the green. The original grey that was on it was very dark and very sort of typical of the era. And you know, I wanted it to look a little bit nicer, and the details that we're going to have on here are going to be cream. So green and cream is always a good combination, and it's period as well. And you know, it does look smart. So I think it's going to go well. I'm a bit undecided what to do with the belt cover at this stage. But no, this is, you know, I think it looks good. You know, I think it looks good, and you know, this is why we mass part. So I'm just taking off the masking tape here, and everything's spot on. I've got no bleeds through or anything like that, and it's just it's a nicer foundation to sort of build on. So yeah, it looks good. What I am looking at the minute actually is a 3D printer for stuff like these ways, and the ways on my lathe. As I've seen a few guys 3D print some way covers, and it would just slot in there really nicely, and you won't get sawdust and rubbish getting in there. Which I'm, you know, toying with the idea, but I know nothing about 3D printers at this stage. So next step, I'm just going to mount everything up. So I've got the chassis to build on, and I was always taught with every machine surface, mating surfaces, that you should put some oil between, and it just gives a little bit of protection through the years on that. And I'm going a bit over the top here with lubricating, but I've put on a bit of copper slip on the bolts underneath. They weren't seized or anything, but you know, for the next guy maybe. Tried to be a little bit more confident with recording and talking at the same time at this point. So there's a few points within the video that I try and do a voiceover whilst I'm working as well, and it didn't kind of go well. But here I'm just doing a little bit of an update for you guys. So everything's been painted. I've reassembled it. It's now hardened the paint, and I'm going to put this to one side now and on to the next stop. As mentioned in the last one, I've learned now after doing quite a few restorations on these sort of old tools and machines, know when to pick your fights. And this was this is like the blade length guide that's on top of the head here, and it's riveted on the same as the other one, and I wasn't comfortable with taking that off, so I'm just gonna let that one slide really and mask it up. Moving on to the fun part of the video, which is I'm using this just a motor with a wire wheel on the end. I really am not a fan of the 6-inch bench grinder with a little tiny wire wheel on it. It just doesn't work. I don't like the drill press method. I see like quite a few other restoration videos with that on, and I'm not a fan. This, you can get a real good throat depth on this, and get into all those awkward parts, and it does go well. And I'm just not a fan of you know, a drill press with a wire brush in it right in your face, throwing the little wire brushes everywhere. Not that this is any worse, but yeah. So we're moving on to the next step here and taking off the reciprocating box pulley set on here, and I can't get it off, so I'm going to use a puller on here and see how we go. Come on, China, you've never failed me yet. Well, yeah. Most of the time you fail. You suck, China. I'm being really careful not to put too much force on this cast top here, because you'll break the finger off one of these pullers. There's no other real way that I could have done it. So I'm just doing steady, just moving. Oh, there you go. Sorry, China. yeah, you can't argue. It worked. It did work. But right, next one. We've got, as we mentioned in the previous one, we've got this horrible sawdust congealed crap that's in the bottom of this box here. So I want to empty it. I looked at trying to take apart everything with the arm inside. And to be honest, I don't think the machine has been used a great deal. The bearing on the other side is fine. There's a little scraper seal that's on the top that's I think's got some damage in here. But naturally, you're gonna get a build up of sawdust anywhere. It just gets everywhere, especially on these sort of type of machines. So I'm going to empty this out, clean her up, and I'm going to mark the positions with a automatic center punch on that point and that point, and so I know I'm going to get the best chance of aligning everything back up when I come to pick it back together again. In case any of you guys were wondering, this is actually the speed that I work to. I wish. But I'm going to take these out. I hate anything that's been freshly painted and you paint the bolts. It looks horrendous, and you can't get anything out. So I'm going to take these out. It's solid on there, so I did try to take it off, and I did contemplate at this point actually taking off the whole. Everything to pieces here, but no, not for me. I'm putting on a bit of tape just to protect the threads in case I slip or anything. So I was on about taking this apart at this point, but it works okay. The shaft on there is pretty clean. Okay, let's clean your granddad's ears out. Ooh, brownie. Sawdust and oil make soil. That was a joke. Well, this is where I've got to. I've got to say there's two worst things about England. First thing is our coffee. Second thing is Christmas pudding. And that is what that is. I double checked with the with that degreaser that's got no sulphur in it, because obviously it will react with the aluminium components. But I must say, I think this has got to be the only restoration video in 2019 that doesn't contain evaporust. I mean, how good is that? I mean, that is that's got to be the first video this year without evaporust, because that seems to be the in thing at the minute, and that's what everybody's using. But yeah. This definitely wasn't reusable by the time that I cleaned this out, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good in there. But I've got to say, I'm pretty pleased with the results after we've been airlined and fully degreased on here. But yeah, pretty pleased with that. Apologies for the roller coaster ride of the video. As I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to record and talk at the same time. The microphone's not picking me up very well, so yeah, I've just cleaned it out. That was the stuff that was in there for a little bit of time, and I'm going to follow the tradition of using really cool hand tools. And you Yanks call them wrenches, so I'm using this fast fit spanner, which looks like that. And every time you open it and move it, how cool is that? And the lucky thing is, because it was made in England, it does metric and imperial. Well, hey! Good times. Well, after a while I brushed this, it's not a particularly great casting. So I tried using this, it's called Strip Away, and it is terrible. Really, really is terrible. You can't get decent stripper anymore because it's they've taken out all the good stuff. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't work that well. But it was okay. It did a job. It did a job. I did a little bit of a part with 3 different types of wire wheels that I've got. I'm using this this brass one. It's a little bit more gentle. I know this is obviously a machine surface. Ideally, this would be ground, but I don't have a surface grinder to make it flat again. It's just a scroll saw. I keep telling myself it is just a scroll saw. You know, I got to do what I've got. You know. Okay, up next is another advertisement for another terrible product, which is Genelite. I used to use this about 4, 5, maybe 6 years ago now, and it seemed really good. I bought this one for when I did the boat roof and started painting, and I bought some Genelite. I thought, you know, great stuff, I can put that on and happy days. But I've never really got on with it very well, and you know, it leaves a bit of a residue on everything, and I'm not too keen on it, but hey ho. At this point, I've just blown everything out. I've degreased everything, and I'm chuffed to bits. Actually, this went really, really well, and it's cleaned up nicely, and I'm happy with the results. So I think from this point here, I can move on to the next part. I managed to clean all around the side. It did take quite some time, but I tried to make a comparison before and after the how it felt with the reciprocating motion at the top, and honestly, it's no smoother than it was before. It's really, really smooth action that's in here, and it's fine. It didn't really need anything else. So now what I'm going to do is just take off this the bed holder and the belt tilt, and take that off, clean it up, and that's the scraper that you can see. It's bent up, and that's what I need to just repair later on and go from there. just watching back through the video now, I would love to see if you went to, I don't know, someone like Delta with this machine and said, right, I want to make an exact copy of this machine today. You know, could we make it? Would we want to make it? And how much would it cost? Can you imagine? I don't even know how they'd go about it, really. I think that we go through products and we try and make them cheap as possible and go through multiple departments and you know, can we use a slightly smaller thread on a bolt to make it, you know, a third of a pence cheaper. It's crazy. But I mean, just look at this part here. I mean, that's a work of art. With the wire wheel, I didn't get in everywhere, so I'm just getting it over a bit by hand with a hand brush, just to clean up those, and then ready for paint. And to be honest, these castings are really good actually. Some of what the aluminium belt guard wasn't great, but this this cast iron piece here with the guide, the guide on the back works really well. And I'm about to paint and. I'm about to wire wheel the box here, so I'm just putting this on as a cover because I don't want to get any sort of ingress of dirt anymore that I need to inside this box. And I'm going to put a rag around the top as well, just to prevent the best I can of getting some any sort of grinding dust or the wire wheel bristles inside there, and might cause a little bit of an issue down the line. I just come out of the workshop here, and I covered this earlier on with paint tickler. It's not stripper, it's just paint tickler. So I'm just wiping it off. It's water based, so you know, you blast it off with a bit of water and try and clean everything out. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. Get a bit of sunshine, get those vitamins coming in there. My workshop is deliberately quite dark because any natural sunlight just messes up any videos. So yeah, any excuse to get out. But that's clean good. At this point, I was thinking about either painting it or polishing it. I'm going to polish it. I think that'll look be quite a nice contrast. Next up, we have. I don't know what the correct name of this. This is the tension at the top where the spring is. I'm just taking that out, ready to clean it and degrease it. There's a cap on the top that needs to be cleaned up and painted, and you'll notice that I'm reassembling everything at this time, so I know where the bits are, because there's about 8 boxes in the background there, full of all different components of components. So again, just trying to be as tidy as I possibly can. We've got to the point now where everything's masked. I could spray these, but I can't spray outside, and I don't want to spray inside because of the overspray. I've done it before and set up cardboard boxes and tried to make a spray booth with an extractor, and it just doesn't work that well. I sprayed that little part because I only wanted a thin amount of primer on there just to cover it, letting the belt guard dry. And again, I've got a beautiful set of DeVille Bliss suction and top fed spray guns. I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to use it because I'm just going to get rubbish everywhere. So, you know, not for me. So, this next one was a find that I found, I don't know, a couple of years ago now. And I think it's for pottery sculpting. And it's a cast iron base. And I've got to say, for painting, you need to get one of these. These are brilliant, especially for hand painting. But it's cast iron base with a cast iron top. And it's got bearings on the top of the spindle, and it just means that you can turn everything round as you're painting, and it just works really, really well. So I'm gonna get out the top coat now, again sticking with the super fast British Racing green, because I think it does look good. Moving next on to the pigtail wire polishing mop here. And it works really well. It does work really well, that little motor. I've just clamped it down. Again, with polishing, what I've found is start off and push the polish into the part, and then lightly buff over it to give you that best shine. But it's never going to be the side of I don't know, an old motorbike, aluminium belt cover, chain cover, etc. I just want something pretty subtle. I don't want it too shiny. And here I'm using a bit of carb cleaner just to take off any excess polish that was on there. So yeah, it works well. You've got to put a bit of humour in somewhere, haven't you? So this is the goes on the back of the blade. It's the blade roller, if that's what the correct name is. I'm just going through and painting everything. I'm using a brush, and what I've found for some reason that the cheaper the brush, and it's more of a stiffer brush on cast iron. If you use something like a Purdy brush, which is meant for, I don't know, glossing your skirting boards, etc., it doesn't. You leave a lot more marks in it with a stiff brush like this, and you tend to dab it to get into the uneven surface of the cast iron. So the cheaper the brush I find on cast iron sometimes is actually the better, and it does work. It does work better, especially on these awkward parts. I mean, there's a lot of compound shapes and different contours that you need to get in. So a smaller brush, which is a little bit more stiffer, you can get into those awkward places. And to be honest, I hate painting. Anything to do with painting, especially I've just done a 60-foot narrowboat, which used around sort of 30 litres of paint, was an absolute nightmare. And I think it's put me off painting for certainly a couple of years. But this wasn't too bad. It's a nice little job and quite a nice first project for this YouTube series. So I'm enjoying it so far. It's good. The editing side, it does. You do appreciate how long it does take. But yeah, it's going well. It's going well, and I'm enjoying it. So again, keeping it tidy as best as I can. Just cleaning up the paint table, and yeah, this is the top part now. The little cover that we've got, inspection cover. And again, not going too mad on the paint. You just need a little bit on your brush and keep going back if you need more. And that works well. The paint is really thin actually. It does flow nicely when you're putting it on, and because you are using a dab motion, you do get a lot of air bubbles. But as it dries, those bubbles do tend to die off and go on pretty nicely. From the I'm going to call it the chassis. I was really pleased with it. It looks good. It looks period. It looks how it should. So I am pleased on that one. I lost a little bit of footage on the painting, but it's not the most exciting of content. But I'm pleased with the results. It does look smart. It does look good. And yeah, again, the table coming into its own, especially painting these parts. So happy days. Okay guys, well that's going to be part 2. We've got to painting all the parts here, done all the masking up. We've got the base down here, which is looking really good. Quite pleased with that. We've done the aluminium casing as well, which the bout guard, which is looking good. Not too over the top, which is what we wanted. What have we got next? We've got the motor to do at the back. Just there, and in the next part we're going to do assembly, cleaning up the nuts and bolts, all the tiny things, and then the one after that I think we're going to do a full motor rebuild, see if we can get that one working. If not, then try and find something a period and fit a foot switch that I bought, which is quite good. So yeah, hope you come along for the next one. Missed a bit. Oh God. Shh.